Hi everyone and welcome. My name is Tanisha Jagadia and I'm a communications specialist at Access2Pay. And today we're going to spend some time walking through one of the most meaningful implementations we've delivered, which is the Town of Oakville's payment modernization. This is a case study told in the words of the people who lived it, the town's project and operational lead. By the time we're done, you'll have the implementation playbook, the integration architecture, and the lessons learned directly from the town. So let's get into it. So why Oakville? Oakville is one of Ontario's most respected municipalities. High income tax base, sophisticated procurement team, demanding IT and finance functions. When Oakville issues an RFP, they know exactly what they want and they push hard on every detail. They didn't just upgrade their payment system, they rethought how residents and businesses transact with the town across two completely different systems of record, their financial ERP and their property tax platform. And they did this without a single data migration or ribbon replace. That's a story worth telling. What you'll take away from the next few minutes is the integration patterns that made it work, how the implementation was actually run, what the town's own staff say about the outcome, and where Oakville is headed next. If you're a municipality managing payments across multiple departments and systems, this is your playbook. Let's start at the beginning, the RFP. In early 2024, the Town of Oakville issued the RFP titled Enterprise Payment Solutions. It was issued jointly by Procurement and IT Services, which tells you right away that this was a corporate level decision. What were they asking for? Not a payment gateway, not a point solution for one department. They wanted a unified enterprise-wide payment platform covering every town service that takes money: recreation, licensing, facility rentals, cemetery services, property tax, everything under one roof. And they were explicit about the integration requirements. The platform had to integrate directly with JD Edwards, their financial subledger, and with Central Square, their property tax system. These two systems of record had to remain in place. No migration or rip and replace, only real-time integrations, real-time posting, with no manual bridges. They also specified direct billing, which is the ability to generate a payment link and send it to a resident or business and have that transaction post cleanly back to JDE. No manual PDF invoicing or paper chase. The omnichannel requirement was clear: in-person, web, counter, and direct billing, all under one platform, one ledger, and one reconciliation. All of it PCI compliant, Canadian hosted, with a real delivery partner on the other side of the contract. That's what they asked for. Let me show you what they had when the process started. So before Access2Pay, the town's payment environment looked like what most municipalities live with today. Payments were collected across multiple departments, and each of these had its own payment story. There was the unified layer underneath. JD Edwards was the financial system of record. Central Square was the system of record for property tax. Each had its own payment touchpoints, but they didn't talk to each other in any meaningful way. The result? Manual reconciliation in the finance department. Staff were spending hours every week chasing variances, matching transactions across systems, and manually closing the books at month end. Direct billing was entirely manual, a paper and PDF process. Staff would generate an invoice, send it out, wait for a check, and then manually enter the payment. No payment links or real-time posting. And for residents, the experience was inconsistent and channel dependent. How you paid depended on where you went and what you were paying for. There was no single view of your account with the town. This is the starting state we see in most municipalities we speak with. It's the result of systems being acquired and deployed over decades and solving a specific problem, but none of them designed to work together. What Oakville decided to do about it is where the story gets interesting. Here's what the architecture looks like after Access2Pay. The foundation is a dedicated PCI SSF certified environment built specifically for the town of Oakville. A dedicated certified environment which matters from a security standpoint, a compliance standpoint, and from a procurement standpoint when your finance team is reviewing the contract. On top of that environment, we delivered two system of record integrations. JD Edwards receives clean subledger postings from every payment across every channel: web, counter, direct billing, and mobile. Central Square remains the system of record for property tax with a live lookup and payment integration sitting in front of it. The direct billing module lets town staff generate a payment link, send it to a resident or business, and have that transaction post cleanly back to JDE. All of this is hosted on Google Cloud Canada, full data residency and sovereign infrastructure. It's a procurement requirement for an increasing number of Ontario municipalities, and we built to it from day one. The result is a unified ledger feeding finance reconciliation in near real time across every channel. When a payment comes in, JDE knows about it. When a resident calls, there's one place to look. That's the architecture. Now, I will pass it on to our CEO and founder of Access2Pay, Anand Misir, who in his conversation with the town's project and operational lead will walk you through their experience.
My name is Anand Misir. I'm the CEO of Access2Pay. Steve Zaborski was the project manager at the Town of Oakville. He's delivered a tremendous amount of technology projects for the town. And I'd like for him to take some time and talk about the project and how it was deployed and the successes and benefits that came.
Starting with part one, the project scope.
At a high level, what was the scope of the Oakville Payment Modernization Project? What systems were involved and how many departments or service areas did it touch?
At a high level, the scope of the Oakville Payment Modernization Project involved really transitioning all of our systems over that were previously on class. This included most of our frontline services that we offer to the public and involved over 17 departments here at the town. We integrated with our tax system, with our financial system, and really transformed a lot of business processes throughout. It's really improved our efficiency and the speed at which we can reconcile at the end of the day, and ultimately helps improve the service that we deliver to our customers.
You are integrating two systems of record, JD Edwards and Central Square, at the same time. Can you explain why both need to be part of the project and what it meant in terms of benefits ongoing?
Yeah, so both had to be in scope from day one because we push all of our financial transactions into JD Edwards, and that's our system of record for all of our financial transactions. And we need to provide the ability for residents to pay their municipal property taxes when they arrive at the town if they wish to pay in person. So we provide, A2G worked with us and we provided the requirements to them, and they were able to successfully integrate with Central Square, which is our new tax system. And when a resident arrives at the town to make a payment, the A2G reaches directly into Central Square, pulls all of the record information that's needed, and allows the resident to make the payment there. With our integration with JD Edwards, previously we had more of a manual integration with the system where our other payment systems would produce manual Excel files that needed to be uploaded. And so there was a batch upload process, and it was far less efficient than what we have now. We now directly integrate with A2G. At the end of the day, customer service representatives reconcile their transactions, and all of the financial transactions are automatically uploaded into JD Edwards.
What were the non-negotiables for the towns, as in the things that needed to work before the town would sign off on the project?
Well, there were several. We needed the ability to provide credit card and debit card payments as well as cash payments. We needed the ability for the system to be a cashiering system in person. We also needed the ability to send billing invoices to folks that were remote, and they whether they were calling in over the phone wanting to make a payment on the spot there, or accessing a payment invoice over email. We needed the ability to do those types of payments, and we also needed the ability to provide payments online. So all of those were non-negotiables for the town before we even engaged in the project, and ultimately before we signed off with any departments going live. So, and we were able to successfully provide all of those types of payments to residents.
Moving on to part 2, working with Access2Pay.
How did Access2Pay approach the discovery and scoping phase, and what stood out compared to other vendors the town has worked with?
So Access2Pay approached the discovery and scoping phase with really engaging the team and understanding our current business process and trying their best to transform it into a more efficient process that met our needs. And that's really what happened through the majority, through all of our implementations, really, is that we really transformed how payments are received, and we really provided a great deal of efficiency for our payment processes. It's a little bit different than how some other vendors engage. We're fairly fortunate that we typically do a good job of getting good vendors, but I would say even more so with Access2Pay, there was a very hands-on and detailed understanding of our processes and making sure that the implementation fit what we were looking for.
That's great.
Access2Pay's team was on site for cutover. If you could share a little bit in terms of what that meant from a project standpoint and how it contributed to the success of the go live.
This was a critical piece for us. Having that support ensured that we had a very smooth go live and transition to operations. And I'm happy to say that all of our go lives went exceptionally well. And if there were any issues, they were very, very quickly resolved with having that go live support. But there were really no major issues at all that would be worth mentioning. It was all a very smooth implementation.
If you could touch a little bit on issues that came up during testing and how my team, Access2Pay's team, was able to respond and address them in a timely manner.
So I would say that this is something that we could really highlight with Access2Pay's attention to detail. The team was incredibly quick to respond to any issues that came up during testing and very quickly addressed them, retested, gave us the ability to then retest, and ultimately all of the issues were resolved prior to go live.
Would you recommend Access2Pay for a similar project? And what would you tell other municipalities when taking on this type of modernization initiative?
Absolutely. We would highly recommend Access2Pay to another municipality. What I would recommend for somebody going through this sort of project is that the municipality really take a detailed inventory of all of their payment items, all of their GL codes, really understand their business processes prior to starting the engagement. And this will help with Access2Pay being able to better understand the process, as well as the speed at which you will implement each deployment. The other thing I would recommend is splitting the go lives logically by service area. So for example, if there's a front service counter, you would go live first with that group and really go live by business unit. And that allows for seamless transition as well as sufficient time to train and really effective change management through the implementation.
Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate the kind words. Now I'd like to move over to Renee. Renee is in the finance department at the Town of Oakville. He is utilizing the system on a daily basis, and one of the main folks who is experiencing most of the benefits. I'd like to give him some time to answer some questions and share his experience about the project and how the solution is working for the town going forward.
Starting with part 1, enhanced processes.
What does the current reconciliation process look like now compared to what it did before, and what benefits have your team experienced?
Well, reconciliation, it's much simpler now. All card payments are auto-reconciled, and end-of-day balancing it's more structured. It has value entry, drop-down reasons for any cash imbalances. It gives finance and staff clearer information, reduces any manual follow-up, makes daily and month-end reconciliation faster and more consistent.
I know you guys are using the direct billing functionality quite a bit, so I'd like you to touch on the benefits you're receiving from that and what type of processes, manual processes, has it replaced?
Well, the direct billing has been a game changer for us. Instead of asking customers or residents to come in person, we'll provide credit card details over the phone. We can now send a secure payment link. It creates a better customer experience. Customers prefer that method, reduces manual handling, and it supports our PCI compliance as well.
When a resident calls about a payment, how has Access2Pay allowed you to service that call better? What data are they getting now that they weren't seeing before that lets them provide the best type of service to a resident?
Well, staff no longer have to search through paper copies or network files to respond to payment questions. The information is easily accessible in E2G. Receipt details are provided there. So staff can quickly reprint or email a receipt to a customer, makes the calls faster, easier, and more efficient on our end.
Overall, what are the 2 or 3 process improvements that's had the biggest impact on your team since the go live?
All right. The 2 biggest improvements I feel have been removing the need to take payments over the phone, as I've mentioned, and streamlining our general ledger export into our accounting system. Payment links put the responsibility in the customer's hands, save staff time, having to call and try to contact individuals when sometimes they're not available, reduces phone tag, as I mentioned, and supports our PCI compliance. On the finance side, the GL export is seamless, accurate. It's one consolidated file supported by auto card reconciliation, and it's an easier, simpler end-of-day balancing for cash, checks, and e-transfers as well.
Moving on to part 2, what this unlocks for the future.
With Access2Pay in place, what becomes possible for the Town of Oakville going forward that wasn't possible before?
With the payment layer now in place, future phases become more about expanding and improving the customer experience. We now have a strong foundation to support more online and self-serve options, connect payments more smoothly to our internal systems through integrations, give residents a more consistent way to pay and access services. A2G opens the door to making town services easier, faster, and more convenient.
How does a online centralized portal for the town impact how it interacts with residents going forward, and how does it help enact the modernization vision?
The Citizen Portal supports our vision of giving residents more self-serve options. Instead of having to contact the town first and asking us how they can pay, residents can now go online, they can see their options, and initiate payment themselves. It gives them more control and convenience while reducing manual steps for our internal staff.
For finance teams watching this webinar and listening to us discuss this project, what would you tell them in terms of recommending Access2Pay, and what lessons can you pass along to them?
Would I recommend Access2Pay? Definitely. From our experience, it has streamlined our key processes, improved accuracy, and created a much better experience for staff and residents and customers. What really stood out for us is not just the technology, but the partnership. The A2G team is very accessible, easy to work with, responsive when we need support or solutions. They work with you to make things better, and they continually try to improve their already great product. So for other municipalities, I'd say it's a strong foundation to modernize payments, reduce manual effort, and move towards self-serve options, all while having a team behind you that helps you succeed.
Thank you very much, Renee, for your words and sharing your experience about the project. I'd like to now pass it back to Tanisha for the rest of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The payment layer was step 1. Here's step 2. Oakville's roadmap now includes a unified citizen portal, a single login where residents and businesses can see every transaction with the town in one place. Property tax balances, permit fees, registrations, facility rentals, and direct bill invoices, all under one account, one view, and one place to pay. This is the experience residents expect. It's how they interact with their bank, the utilities provider, the telecom. They log in once, see everything, and pay without friction. The expectation is already set. What most municipalities are still offering is the pre-digital alternative. The citizen portal is built on the same dedicated certified environment, the same JDE integration, the same central square integration. There's no new infrastructure required, no new compliance certification, no new vendor. It's a natural extension of the foundation we laid in phase 1. And that's the point I want to leave you with as we head into the final section. The municipalities that are going to serve residents the way residents expect to be served in 5 years are the ones building the payment foundation now. The portal is a product decision. The payment layer underneath is an infrastructure decision, and that infrastructure takes time to get right. Oakville got it right in phase 1. Phase 2 is now ready to go. Before we move on to next steps, I want to give you the most practical section of this webinar, the advice Steve and Renee would give to any municipality going through this process. From Steve, firstly, take a detailed inventory upfront. That means understanding all of your payment items, your GL codes, the systems involved, and the business processes that the new payment environment will touch. The more clearly you define that at the beginning, the smoother the project will go. Second, define your non-negotiables. For Oakville, that meant making sure that the solution could support in-person payments, cashiering, credit, debit, and cash payments, payment links, invoicing, and online payments. Thirdly, choose a hands-on implementation partner. One of the things that stood out in Oakville's experience was having a partner that took the time to understand the town's existing processes and work within the realities of the organization. Fourth, go live with on-site support. Split deployment logically by service area and make sure your vendor is on-site and responsive. That kind of support makes a real difference when you transition from implementation to day-to-day operations. And from Renee, firstly, make reconciliation a core requirement. One of the biggest operational improvements at Oakville was the move to auto-reconciled card payments and more structured balancing processes. Second, give staff access to payment details. With the right system in place, staff can quickly find receipt information in A to G and print or email receipts to residents without digging through paper files or shared drives. Third, simplify the GL export and daily balancing. Having one consolidated, accurate export makes end-of-day and month-end processes much easier for the team. And fourth, treat phase 1 as the foundation. The payment layer is not just a point solution. It sets up future self-serve options and citizen portal that municipalities will almost certainly want next. If what you've heard today is relevant to where your municipality is headed, here are the 4 ways to go deeper. A 30-minute discovery call with Anand, our CEO, personally to walk through your environment, your systems of record, and where the Oakville pattern applies to your situation. A walkthrough of the direct billing payment link workflow, what it looks like in practice, how staff use it, and how it goes back to your ERP. An architecture brief covering the JDE and Central Square integration pattern, the dedicated certified environment, and the GCP Canada hosting, sent directly to you to share internally. A roadmap conversation, specifically how the payment foundation we're describing sets up a unified citizen portal as your phase 2 and what that timeline and lift actually looks like. The floor is now open. Before we go to questions, a quick summary of what we covered today. Oakville ran a demanding RFP for an enterprise-wide payment platform. They needed real integrations with JDE and Central Square, omni-channel coverage, direct billing, PCI compliance, and Canadian hosting. They wanted a delivery partner. We delivered all of it. The implementation was clean, the go-live was successful, and the outcomes are real. The roadmap is set, the foundation is now in place with Phase 2 as Citizen Portal. If you want to talk about what this looks like for your municipality, reach us directly at anand@access2pay.com or book a time at our website access2pay.com. Thank you. Let's take your questions.